Hey, welcome back. We have a knife here, and I think this may be my last folding knife review of the year. Yeah, I actually haven't bought one like this for quite a while. Oh, a package within a package, torment me. But when you see something kind of special, ooh, bull knives, then you gotta take a risk sometimes. And although this is made in China, Bull Knives did a production version of their Xyro. Oh, that's pretty sweet. Wow. I do not buy a lot of knives made in China these days. I am very glad I went for this. Ooh, strong on the detent. Interesting, it rolls out really easily, but the front flip is pretty strong on there. That's pretty freaking sweet. So let's take a look at it, get a little closer look here. It's a tied liner with a very nice carbon fiber, no hardware overlay. I guess one piece aside from the pivot, and one hidden under the pocket clip there. Classic Bull Knives machine pocket clip. Wow, that thing is really strong. I gotta try that in the pocket really quickly and see if that's a problem. No, it works, but that is very strong. I mean, luckily the angle and the shape and everything is really nice. Look at the jimping. Man, that is pretty sweet, and the thumb flip works. And it's a sweet hollow grind. Oh man, I'm really glad I got this. I thought this might be a regret M390, just one little tiny marking on there, along with that engraving. Pretty much everything is just where you'd want it to be. It's not too sharp, but not too slippery in terms of the jimping and the thumb hole and everything. Oh man, wow, what a pleasant surprise. So the way that they're doing these, I believe, is they go and have them made by Reate, and then they do the QC themselves, the quality control themselves. Let's see if we can get that out. Oh, nice. Lockup looks pretty good. It's like a little late for a brand new knife. I'd normally look for one to be like a little earlier like that as a brand new knife. So it's a little late there, but zero play. Wow. That feels almost as good as their production knife. And I remember reading that Gareth Bull, you know, they did all the QC and everything. And he's like, honestly, the prototype was great. These production ones are even better. And I was kind of like, is he hyping it up or what? But, you know, those guys have such a high standard for themselves. I was, you know, kind of getting a little optimistic. Shit, that's the best. I cannot remember a knife made in China I like this much. That is freaking impressive. The Demco made in Taiwan. This, the the Factor from Winterblade, made in China as well by Best Tech. Wow, that is a sweet knife. At first, when I first got it, I was like, the size seems a little too small, just like I felt the first time I got a Mini Xyro, but it's actually pretty good. Interesting, I wonder if that's Zerk on the hardware, or if it's just blackened titanium or something. Very interesting. Or just steel. Definitely getting some steel in here. It seems like the hardware is steel. Obviously the blade. Let me get this blade out of here and see. Yeah, I think the hardware is steel. Interesting. Pocket clip, titanium. Liner's titanium. Check that out with the liner. That's really nice. What I like about this design is you don't get pinched by the liner, because it's slightly behind that. So if you look at it from this angle, you can slightly see the, man, that is really nice. Holy cow. Well, call it production knife of the year, depending on your definition of production, but that really strikes a chord with me, and I am honestly a little speechless and surprised. Nice little back spacer. Looks like it's carbon fiber on the back spacer, which is cool. Keep it nice and light. Let's do some measurements. I've been kind of captivated here. Let's do some quick measurements and see what we got. So in terms of the blade itself, you got just under 3 inches of cutting edge, which is great for those of you that have concerns with 3-inch blades. So it's maybe 2.99 inch or something like that, and like 2.875 of cutting edge. Overall length, we are looking at 6.875 inches, right in the sweet spot for most of us. And in terms of weight, wow, that is really nice. 2.55 ounces. So it is a little one. This is definitely not like a big knife. Let's do some size comparisons to some other knives you might be familiar with. I usually like to do size comparisons this way. I know it's not the standard on knife channels or whatever, but it actually works really well. So there's the CGRB pyrite, so it's a little smaller than a pyrite. Here's a full-size Benchmade bug out, definitely smaller than the full-size bug out. So we're talking about a small knife here, right? Demco 80-20.5 makes this thing look very tiny. Let's do the tactile Rockwall. Don't bring that out on the channel enough lately. Very similar in size. Even the Rockwall is a little longer than this. The Wee Knives Banter. That's a great knife, made in China for $110. S35VN blade steel. Obviously not meant to be quite as nice as this, but a really nice knife. The SPK Lamia makes this guy look very tiny by comparison. A Spyderco Para 3. That little guy, probably similar on the cutting edge, but way bigger on the handle there. And then you've got the Oz Roosevelt. For those of us that would be comparing it with something more in class. And I don't know if there's anything else really worth comparing here that I have handy, so we'll call it at that. So yeah, definitely a small knife. This is not a big knife, but it's kind of thick. So on the thickness side, this is where it's a little more outsized. You can see versus the Rosie here, even though it's like a small knife, it's got some substance to it. It's like a little thicker than a Rosie. Not quite as thick perhaps as like an SPK Lamia. Wow, it's right there actually. Very similar to the SPK Lamia. So it's really a thicker knife. More contoured than those. It feels very small in hand. It's like a little cramped, but not bad. I'd say for most people, they would be very satisfied with this. What I'm most struggling with is getting a great purchase. I wish they just dialed this back just a touch there to expose the, because they don't have like a ton of jimping there. So it's very easy to kind of miss on the front flipper. So I wish they had just given a little more room to make sure I have a really nice purchase. It is doable, but I have to be much more intentional. I usually like to just kind of throw it on the side of my thumb there and just kind of cavalier pop it out. I have to really make sure that I've got a purchase before I do that, or I will miss. Now that might loosen up, and actually I'm sure that detent probably varies a little bit from one to another. Yours might not be, as strong on the detent, but generally this thing feels remarkable. And wow, I was not expecting to have this extra knife in my collection, and I'd say now I will. This is quite impressive. So I'm gonna have to think about what this, what I do with this. This has become something I carry. It's just, and I had this in my top 10 knives list that I checked out this year. Maybe it was in my top 30 most coveted. I can't remember where I had it, but this model is definitely one of the better knife models, and I'd really love to get my hands on a full-size Xyro and see how that kind of compares. You can see it's not like I'm, you know, a 3-finger grip or anything here. This is a full 4-finger grip with not room to spare, but just right. It's definitely just right in that sense. Interesting model. It really is an interesting model. And by the way, one of the cool things that's almost surprising on here is how easy it is to thumb flip it. Of course I miss when I say that, but it's actually not that hard to thumb flip given that it's kind of tucked away in there and it's not super easy to access, but it's doable. I like the rollout a little more, just the way it's designed. The reverse flip is phenomenal. And then the front flip leaves a little something to be desired, but for a real strong front flipper, you're gonna have no problem. How about the drop shuttiness? Drops to the nail, no problem. It's like a little stiff thereafter. I imagine that could be dialed a little bit, but you know, this is straight from the factory. But it's not like, if you give it a whip, it'll definitely close. Like if you give it a strong whip, it'll close. I'm giving it like a moderate whip and it takes like 2. If you give it a good whip, that thing's gonna close. Centering looks perfect to me. Yeah, that's a beauty of a knife. I have to say, that's a little disruptor right there, and this is going to be one of those knives I think that goes down in history as one of the best production knives to come out of China. It's really, really good. I think these are gonna be hot. So yeah, that's all for now. If you enjoyed the content, please feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.